Life Update
こんにちは、早川洋平です。人生を更新するインタビューマガジンライフアップデート、ワイヤードの創刊編集長ケヴィン・ケリーさんとの対談後編をお届けします。今回は AI と人間の関係性、日本の未来、そして彼が取り組む100年後の望ましい未来プロジェクトについて伺いました。テクノロジーの進化が加速する中、人間にしかできないこととは何か。世界中を歩き学び続ける彼が見据える未来社会の姿とは。未来を想像しなければその未来を作り出すことはできないと語るケビンさんと共に、テクノロジーと人間が共生する世界の道筋を探ります。キーワードはイマジネーション。Okay, so next question. There is related word exclusive to the Japanese version. The 463rd word. Don't hesitate to invest in yourself. Spend money on courses and training. That modest expenditure will soon produce immeasurable benefits. So what is the best course or training you have received in your life, and how much was it?
That's a good question. There are two things. I'm a college dropout.
Yes.
So I didn't finish college, but I went to work in a science lab with a friend of mine at the University of Georgia. And while I was there, I took some courses that I paid for myself. And one of the courses was on the business of newspapers. And that later on was very, very valuable for starting Wired magazine.
Yes.
So I paid for a course in the business of newspapers. That was very, very valuable. I don't know how much I paid. I think it was like $40 for the credit. And then later on, I took a course that I paid for myself that was not offered by the university. It was called Dialogue. And I have to explain what Dialogue was. This was before there was the internet. Before there was the internet, there was a service where you could search for the digital information that was found in libraries. So there were some scientific papers that had the title of the paper. And there were card catalogs at the library that would have a title of a book. And sometimes they would have the full article in like a Time magazine or a newspaper. The article would be digitized.
Yes.
And Dialogue was like the Google for that before there was the internet. But here was the thing. To search for it, it was very expensive. It cost $1 a minute.
$1 a minute. Wow.
$1 a minute, and this was in 1980. So that was a lot more money than now.
Yeah.
Let's say it was $5 a minute.
Wow.
So to do a search was not free. You had to pay $5 for every question you asked. And it was very slow in the answering.
Yes.
So the Dialogue course was to train you how to search because it was so expensive. You had to write out all your search questions and everything and the follow-up questions beforehand. It was so expensive that you actually had to take a course to learn how to use Google, basically, if you could think of that. So I paid for that course in 1982 maybe, which was very valuable to me in being able to be online before the internet. So when the internet came along, I was already online. I had a head start in the online world because I had paid for the course in Dialogue.
I see. So compared to that, it's very easy to research everything, but I think it's a little bit doubt. Even it's easy to research everything, but actually it's not easy to research deeply, I think. Please tell us an advice to research something and to know deeply.
Yes. Here is the advice. The advice is very simple. It's called the rule of 7. The rule of 7.
I see. I read. Yeah.
The rule of 7 is that if you were willing to go 7 rounds, 7 times down, you will find your answer. And what that means is that you ask the first question or the first person, and they say, I don't know the answer. and you say to them, who would you recommend that I talk to? Who might know the answer? Or where can I go? And they say, well, maybe try this. So you go and try that. But they don't have the answer either. And you say, who do you suggest I talk to next? Or who might know this? Or where can I look? And they say, go here. And you come to the third one and they don't have the answer. If you're willing to go down to 7, you will have your answer every time.
Yeah, I tried. In your experience, do you have more asking 7 questions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, of course, now with AI, you can ask. And by the way, this also applies to AI. If you are using ChatGPT,
I see.
And to get an answer, and they don't have the answer, keep asking the seven levels. You can say, well, that's not the answer I wanted. Say you're talking to AI. You can say, I don't believe that. Can you give me proof? Or that's too easy. What about this? This doesn't make sense. And you keep pressing it 7 times, you'll have a clear answer. If they say, I don't know, you say, well, try looking up the book. So what does the old newspaper say? So you do the same thing. And even recently, things that I thought like, if I want to know how many songs are written in a year worldwide, that's the kind of question that you can ask a GPT, but you're not going to get the answer right away. You have to actually keep going down more and more and more.
That's great advice. I have no money. If so, no problem.
Right.
Okay. Excuse me for changing subject a little bit. So how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yeah. Failure comes in all kinds of ways. In some senses, you could say I failed at college because I dropped out after 1 year, and that set me up because I decided to pursue my own education, my own path. And I went to Asia. I went to Japan.
I see. Yeah.
1972.
So I've heard that you were coming to Japan. Your father's friend's home?
Yeah, my father's friend served in the army. He was one of the first American soldiers to land in Japan. You know, it's hard to remember how much fear and hatred there was at that time between Japan and the U.S. It doesn't seem even possible. You know, we Americans mistreated the Japanese citizens. It was just terrible. So when my father's friend landed, they didn't know if they were going to be shot, if they were going to be mobbed. They didn't know what would happen, but he fell in love with Japan and married a Japanese woman. And so he told me stories about Japan that America in the 50s, 1960s, when I grew up, was very close, very parochial, very narrow.
Yeah.
So I had stories about Japan, like the baseball games. That was my friend. My father's friend loved Japanese baseball. And he had a friend, and I gave me a friend's name to stay with in Japan.
Yes.
And that was like the best university in the world because everything was very different from New Jersey, where I grew up. And it was 1972 is not that far after the war, right? It's only 25 years, right?
Yes.
Not that far. And so things were still in many areas, very traditional and very, very different. And every day I learned something new. And every day I had my mind changed. And every day I saw something that I didn't understand. That just made my appetite for learning accelerate.
Yeah.
I just was learning all the time. And that's because I dropped out. That's because I had the failure of college.
Okay. Thank you. So what about recent aha moments?
Aha moments?
Yeah.
Aha. I might have some notes. I sometimes put down some notes like that. So here, let's see if I can aha moment. Let's see. I think there was an aha moment when someone was asking, like, what's a really great invention that we don't normally think of as an invention? And my aha moment was when if you have like Netflix or Amazon and you're watching streaming in a series and they have something called skip the introduction.
Yeah.
And you hit the button. That's one of the best inventions of all time is skip intro.
Yeah.
Yes. That's aha. That's a great That's a great invention.
Oh, interesting. So how many times do you do skip system?
I see. I do it.
It's a joke.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. How many times? Yes. At least once a day. So I watch a lot of YouTube.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. I watch maybe every day 2 hours or 3 hours of YouTube every day.
It's unexpected. What kind of program do you watch?
Mostly people making things because I love to make things.
I see.
Sometimes a little bit of travel, a little bit where they have people meeting new things, but mostly about making things. And that comes back to watching professionals recover from their mistakes. Because I can see them and they make a mistake and they recover from it. And so that's where I get a lot of my knowledge about making things. And so I learned so much. And part of what you also learn about is what is possible to do. Because today with YouTube, you can learn how to do amazing things. Amazing things that I could never do by myself. Like the other day, there was a hot tub has a motor that keeps the pumps going. And the bearing in the motor, it makes a sound. And it's called the bad bearing. And normally what you would do is you would probably throw out the motor. But I knew that you can change the bearing in the motor.
Yes.
But I'd never done that. I know you could do it.
Yes.
So I watch YouTube about how to do it. And you need a special tool. So the YouTube tells you what tool to get. I go to Amazon, I get the tool. I take the bearing out myself.
Yeah.
Put the new bearing in I got on Amazon. It's like brand new. When I was growing up 50 years ago as a kid,
yes,
it would be impossible to learn how to do that unless you had a brother or a father who was a machinist. It would be impossible to learn. But now anybody like me, any kid, anywhere in the world can learn how to do that. It's so powerful. You can learn how to do anything you want. Surgery. You can become a butcher. You can learn how to do an experiment. You can learn how to do anything on YouTube. And I think that's so important. I think young people today, are learning more on YouTube than they are in school.
Yeah. So needless to say, YouTube is amazing. But on the other hand, I'm worried about the content, the program we watch every day is personalized because of AI. So in such a sense, I think it is difficult to get new content in a sense. What do you think about that? And how do you deal with it?
I like the recommendations that YouTube makes. I find them very useful. I don't find it very difficult to kind of try something new. All you do is just search for something. So instead of searching for Google, try searching on YouTube. What if the Romans invented gunpowder? What if, how would you survive on Mars? Well, you could ask any kind of a question, anything. And if you go to YouTube, you find interesting different answers. And if you look at those recommendations, you can get down into a whole nother area that you've never thought of in your life.
Yeah.
And you can see really good things. I don't find it difficult to go to new places on YouTube, even though they would give me very good recommendations of what they know I like. But if you just watch a few videos on something different, suddenly you start to get these other things. I was watching something strange the other day. I can't remember what it was. About how they make movies, how they cast people for a movie. And all of a sudden I'm getting recommendations about casting. I wasn't that interested, but now it's a whole nother world that I didn't know anything about. There's all this stuff. So I find it not difficult to go and explore new things on YouTube.
Right.
And I think it's incredibly powerful, whatever your interest is in, how to become a better interviewer, how to ask better questions. They'll tell you.
I tried. Okay, so we have received many messages from listeners to you. Let me introduce one of them. Question received from a woman in her 30s who is currently unemployed. This question. I have read the Wired magazine. I thought it was a curious magazine that made me laugh, cry, and surprised me. By the way, what do you think about the working poor? I have read about the working poor in the United States, Japan, South Korea, and France and it struck me. The working poor are people who work full-time but earn less than welfare, and they were increasing in developed countries. But in France, everyone gets a rent allowance, so even the working poor can pay their mortgage or rent, and it raises their living standards. But in the other countries mentioned above, there is no such support. They have a hard time. What do you think about that?
So I think what that person is asking about is UBI, Universal Basic Income. That's a thing, yes. Which means that the government or the other people's taxes will pay people a minimum amount for food and shelter so that they don't have to worry about food and shelter. So that's a very powerful idea that could be totally wrong or it could be totally right. I think the idea can only be determined by trying it many times. So we want to have many experiments with different amounts that you pay people,
yes,
different conditions. And right now they've done a few experiments. There was one recently that was completed and they gave $1,000 US to people,
yes,
for doing nothing. And another one where they gave them $50 a month for doing nothing. And what they discovered was it didn't really change very much. So it could be that it doesn't work, or it could be that's not enough money. We don't know. And I think what I would say is thinking about this is not going to figure it out. You can't figure this out by thinking about it. You can't have a theory and decide from the theory whether this is good or bad. This is one of those kinds of questions that we can only determine by actually trying the many experiments. So it doesn't matter what your ideology is, whether you're a libertarian, whether you're a conservative, whether you're a liberal, you can't tell whether this is a good idea. You actually have to try the experiment many times in many ways to get some data to be able to tell. And I don't think just one experiment is not going to be enough.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Next, what is the most important lesson life has taught you?
Well, maybe I'll give you three. The first one is in the book, I give advice when you were young, you should try and go to as many funerals of dead people who died as you can. Go to as many funerals and listen to what the people say about the person who died. They're not going to talk about the awards that they won in their life. They're not going to talk about how much money they made or didn't make.
Yes.
They're not going to talk about their achievements. They're mostly going to talk about what kind of a person they were and how they made other people feel. So the first lesson is that that's the most important thing in life, is not whether you are famous, but whether you're kind.
Yes.
The second thing, the lesson of life, is that your purpose in life is to figure out your purpose in life.
Yes.
Okay? That's like a paradox. Your purpose is to figure out your purpose. It was like, well, what's the purpose? Yeah, to figure out the purpose. And you're going to spend your whole life doing that. You won't know, but your entire life is trying to figure out what your purpose is.
Yeah.
The whole time. I tell you, Jeff Bezos,
yes,
trying to figure out what the purpose in his life is. I know that because I've walked with Jeff. All the billionaires, Elon, they're trying to figure out what their purpose in life is. That is the purpose in life. The third thing is that you don't want to try and be the best in things. You want to try and be the only. You want to be the only person. You want to be the only person doing that. You don't want to be the best person doing it. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. That's a very high bar. It's a very...
Yeah, I do think so.
Because most people don't know what you're good at, what they're good at. So you spend most of your life trying to figure out what is it that I'm good at that I can do that other people can't? What are my special talents? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And it will take most of your life to figure that out. Your purpose in life is to be the best. To be the best you that you can be. Your purpose in life is to be only you.
Yeah. I'm so inspired. So I think you have been to Japan several times before, right?
Many times. Actually, I have in-laws in Japan. I have family in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my daughter married a Japanese American.
Wow.
So I have a Japanese mother-in-law.
Wow. In addition to that, I live in Yokohama. Do you know?
Yes, I was in Yokohama this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I came to Yokohama this year.
Wow. If possible, please tell me more about the memories of Yokohama this year.
Yeah. I'd never been to Yokohama before. It was very commercial. I guess is the word. One day walking along the waterfront area.
港未来.
Yeah, and they have a big long pier that they Yeah, all the bricks and walking along the High Line. That was very nice and beautiful view of the harbor. So, and I went to Chinatown, of course. You know, the Yokohama Chinatown's very famous.
Yeah.
I think it seemed like a convenient place. You know, the subway system was very convenient. That's my impression.
Okay.
I still spent a lot of time in the rural parts of Japan, like Kii Peninsula, Kii Valley, Kansai area. And I'm sometimes worried about Japan, about the depopulation. It really concerns me going through some towns with very few people.
Yeah, so about that, next question, it's related to that. So when I think about Japan today and the world in the future, I feel that it will become more and more important to live optimistically, like you, which is what you preach in your book, in your life. I feel that Japan is a nation of people who always think about risk, perhaps because Japan was originally an earthquake, any kind of disaster country. Of course, thinking about risk is sometimes good things, we think. But recently, I would say that it has become too much and has led to a pervasive atmosphere of not being able to paint bright picture, bright blueprint of the future. If you were a consultant or a teacher and Japan was your client, what advice would you give us?
Yes. Oh boy. Very difficult question because
I know
it's a whole country. There's so much diversity among people in any country, and even Japan. I would say one thing, which has to be said very carefully. I think you, for better and worse, you have to open up to immigration in a legitimate way. And my hope is that with technology of language translation, where we could wear earbuds and have Japanese translated into perfect English and my perfect English go into your ears as perfect Japanese, that it would be possible to have people from all over the world come live in Japan and participate without a language barrier.
Yeah.
And that might be possible to revive Japan if you had people from all over the world coming to work, young people especially, who love so many of the things that Japan does so well, that they're very livable cities. They're huge, attractive to people who are willing to, play by the rules, do the cultural things, but could get over the language barrier. I think that would be incredibly powerful for Japan.
Yeah. So when it comes to language barrier, to tell the truth, before our interview, I tried to the real-time translation system in Zoom because of this interview.
Right.
but it's not reasonable.
Right.
Yeah. So
not now, but I tell you, in a couple of years, it will be.
Yes, will be.
Oh, yes. When I go to China,
I
give talks. That's my business. And until last year, they have simultaneous translators, humans. They work in pairs, two of them. They translate my thing in real time into Chinese, and they do about 20 minutes or less, 10 minutes, and they take turns. But in the last year, they now use AI.
Oh.
It's called iFlyTech. And they use AI to translate my talks in real time. They're only subtitle. They're not spoken. It's good.
Was it natural?
It's pretty good. It's 96%.
Wow.
Okay. So I think in 2 years, we will have a system that would in real time translate from English to Japanese and back in 2 years.
Wow. So in such a sense, it's difficult to keep motivated to study English.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. But that may be true. But imagine the millions of people who will be able to participate in the global economy. Millions of people in Japanese who are so skilled, except in English. Now they have a chance to work for a global company. And I think that's going to be so powerful. So powerful.
Yeah. So related to technology. So do you think there is anything that humans can do and AI cannot do forever? If so, what do you think it is?
Well, I think first of all, forever is too long of a time. Who knows forever? But I would say in your lifetime, there are lots of things that it won't do in your lifetime. One of the things right now we're nowhere near is that our minds work on 25 watts. Very little energy. The AIs are so energy. So to make like a robot that can think and do what we do and move. We're a quarter horsepower. There's no robot that can do anything with a quarter horsepower. So what I'm saying is our bodies and minds is so energy efficient.
Yeah.
That we're not a million times near there. So having a computer that's the smartest human that could run as fast as a human will not happen in your lifetime. Ever. Having this mobility, being able to do something new that has never done before and use his hands to do that, we're nowhere near being able to do that. That's going to be very, very, very hard because of silicon, but just because of energy, because of the amount of energy that you need to put into the AIs. The AIs are just, they're a question that you can do with just a couple of calories. They require megawatts of energy to do.
Megawatts.
Even if you reduce it by 1,000,000, that's still not enough. In a weird way, this combination of a portable mind inside a portable body is going to be very, very, very difficult to do. Maybe there are AIs in the cloud that can be very smarter than humans, but they're not going to be very mobile. And there could be robots that are very mobile, but they're not going to be very smart. The two of them together, a smart mobile, that's called a body. That's so hard. We have no idea how to do that.
No idea.
No idea.
Okay, thank you. So when it comes to Kevin Kelly, I would say the god of gadget in a sense. Actually, I get this. It's very difficult to get in Japan. So what do you think is the greatest gadget for you? If you can have this after life, next life, what would you select?
Yeah, I just want to say the book that you held up, the Whole Earth Catalog, was my first job, working at the Whole Earth Catalog. And it has access to tools, and it had a lot of reviews of tools inside. And that was done in maybe around 1979 or so. In one of the tools that it reviewed was a personal computer, which was basically a calculator. I think the most amazing tool that I would like in the afterlife is this.
iPhone.
This is the magic. This is the best camera I've ever owned.
I see.
I've owned cameras for 50 years. I have taken professional photography books. This is the best computer I've ever had. This is a miracle. It's an incredible miracle. Technology. It's so amazing. It's recording. I mean, this is like a recorder. It's a video camera. It's amazing. And if I had one of these 50 years ago, it would have been like worth $100 million. You know, it's just, so I think this technology, I think we don't appreciate how amazing it is.
So if when you are 20s, if you have iPhone, do you think your life was completely changed?
Well, in terms of photography, yes. As I said, this phone is the best camera ever. I carried 500 rolls of film. I could never see the image. It wouldn't work in the dark. I need a lot of light. Yeah, it would change photography 100%. That's what I did when I was younger. That's all I was thinking about was photography. That was just completely changed it. Yes, GPS, knowing where I was, not being lost all the time. I was traveling over in Asia, and there was no telephone to my parents. There was no messaging. There was nothing. So once a month, they would get a letter. Once a month, a letter from me. And I would have no idea. They could not send me a letter. Of course, it would change my life. So I think people don't realize the incredible gifts that we have right now. I tried to explain to my kids how different the world was when you didn't have the internet and you couldn't ask a question. People ask questions all day long, all young kids. And 50 years ago, you could not ask those questions. Nobody can answer those questions. None of your questions are answered. Imagine that world where you have questions and there's no answers. No one's going to give you any answer.
Right.
That was what I grew up in. This is an answer machine where I can ask anything and get the question immediately. That's just amazing.
I agree. Thanks to that, I can run my own company because of podcasting.
Right.
Lastly, do you have any projects that you are working on?
So I'm working on a project called the 100-Year Desirable Future.
Desirable Future.
So these are scenarios about 100 years from now that has AI, the mirror world, and genetic engineering, and surveillance that I want to live in. It's a picture of the world with all the technology and all the changes, but it's a world I want to live in. It's a friendly world. It's a world that I desire. And so it's trying to describe that world in detail. Like, well, what does the military look like? What about religions? What about food? What is that world in 100 years? And it's not a prediction. I'm not saying that it has to work that way. I'm saying I would like it to work this way.
Wow. So where can I catch them?
I'm making it now. And
in the near future, can we?
I think the reason why I'm making it is I think it's impossible for us to make desirable future without first imagining it.
Yeah.
So I want to help people imagine a future they want to live in, because I don't think we can make a future that we like unless we can imagine it first.
Yeah. Okay. So where can the listeners or audiences connect with you and learn more about your work?
My website is my initials, kk.org. And on the socials like Twitter, Instagram, I'm Kevin2Kelly. Kevin, the number 2, Kelly.
Yes.
And I try to, share whatever I make.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin, for your time today. It was a great pleasure talking with you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you as well. Okay. It's my pleasure. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Life Update